Welcome back to Kakalu. I hope you've all enjoyed the last story that I covered on this podcast, and today I'm back with another TV show that I really liked. This one is actually a Korean drama called Akue Kot, which I think the literal translation is Flower of Evil, and it's another mystery slash thriller drama that I completely binged when it first started airing. Usually for a drama, what I do is I wait for all the episodes to come out, and then I watch the entire drama on in the span of 2 or 3 days. And this one was so incredibly good that it just kind of solidified my behavior of always waiting for dramas to finish before I start watching them. The acting, the story, and the just characters in this drama are fascinating, so let me put you right into the thick of it. The opening scene of this drama is a bit dramatic. The entire thing starts off with a man at the bottom of a swimming pool. His feet are tied together, he has blood coating one side of his face, and there's water in the swimming pool, and it's at a level where if he stretches his neck, his forehead will pop out of the water, so he can't breathe. His hands are bound behind his back, and then they're tied to these metal handles that are on the pool floor. And after struggling for a few minutes, his movements start to slow down. He stops yanking at the ropes holding his hands, and his feet that have been tied together are slowly starting to fall closer and closer to the floor, and his eyes start to close. He's unconscious when a woman jumps into the pool, and when she sees him, she looks extremely distraught. She can't believe what she's actually seeing in front of her eyes. And then she proceeds to share her breath with him through lip-to-lip contact. Now, I'm not entirely a medical expert by any means, but I have my doubts on whether or not this would work in real life. I feel like if he came to consciousness with the little breath that she did give him, he'd just inhale some more water and then be unconscious again. Anyway, that's what she chooses to do, and lo and behold, he regains his consciousness. And as he's coming to, he thinks, should I tell you what kind of person I am? And the woman who's in the process of saving him thinks, I'll like you a lot from here on out. I'll be really good to you. Then one day, things will change, kind of like a lie. And then the scene changes. These two people that we've seen earlier in the pool are now making out in what seems to be a metal shop, but for small objects. There are these metal pendants that are on display, a few necklaces that are hung up on the wall, and even some metal bracelets sitting along a display area in the front of the store. The couple has a vinyl playing, really setting the mood for their session, and they're really getting into it when all of a sudden the music stops. The woman breaks away from the kiss and she swats at him playfully. Oh my god, it's 4 o'clock. We're gonna be late, you silly man. What if a customer came in? He smiles at her before retorting, who was the one who set the mood with the music? She smiles at him and says, honey, can you go upstairs and put Eunha in her best outfit, something with an obvious brand logo? I have to go pick up my clothes from the dry cleaners. And the man looks confused for a second. We're going to eat with family, just the three of us. Why are you putting in so much effort? But she doesn't say anything. Instead, she gives him a small smile and walks out of the store. Let's get their names down before we get any further into the story. The man's name is Baek Hee-sung, and the woman's name is Chae-Won. They're a married couple with one really cute daughter, Baek Eunha. So their little family right now is gathered in the car, heading to wherever the destination for the dinner is. Hee-sung, the husband, is driving, and Chae-Won, the wife, is in the passenger seat, and baby Eunha, she's not a literal baby, she's 6 or something, is in her car seat in the back seat. They're driving along when Chae-Won springs a surprise on them. Originally, tonight, the three of them were supposed to enjoy a nice dinner, but Chae-Won invited her in-laws as well. And this whole conversation is giving the vibes that Chae-Won is still looking for acceptance and affection from her in-laws. Do let me know if this is a thing in your culture, but in my culture, it's kind of what's the word? A stereotype, but not really, because I know it does happen. Anyway, it's a thing where the daughter-in-law and the mother-in-law very rarely get along. They're always at each other's throats because the mother-in-law wants her daughter-in-law to dote on her son just like how she does, and the daughter-in-law, doesn't want to do that because he's a grown man who can take care of himself. And for a second, this conversation makes you think that perhaps this might be the case here, where the mom loves her son so much that she gives her daughter-in-law a hard time for not doing enough for him. But I think it's quickly apparent that that's not what's going on here. It's one thing when the daughter-in-law and the mother-in-law can't get along, but it's immediately strange if a 6-year-old is scared of both of her grandparents. When Chae-Won turns in her seat to ask Eunha, her daughter, if she's excited to see her grandparents, her response is, I'm scared of Grandma. I know you're scared of her too, Mom. Chae-Won laughs an awkward laugh while side-eyeing Hee-sung because this is a bad look on her if she's scared of her husband's parents. And Hee-sung, he's kind of just, chilling out in the driver's seat. He doesn't really seem to care about what Chae-Won says about his parents or how she feels about them, really. The three of them arrive at the restaurant, and their encounter with Hee-sung's parents starts off rather painfully. The grandparents are just staring at the family with absolutely not a single trace of warmth or affection in their eyes. Eun-ha looks terrified to see them, and she's actively hiding behind her father's legs. And Chae-Won is just smiling a polite smile. So it doesn't look like it's tension between Chae-Won and the mother-in-law. It actually looks like there's a tension between Hee-sung and his parents, along with Chae-Won and Hee-sung's parents as well. So there's definitely something strange going on here. The grandmother is the one to break the awkward silence, and she looks straight at Chae-Won and says, "You haven't taught your child how to greet her elders?" Hee-sung decides to stand up for his kid, and he says, "It's because she probably remembers being turned away last year, Mother." "Well, who told you to show up uninvited?" Chae-Won puts a hand on Hee-sung to stop him from saying anything else and quickly changes the topic. "Were you able to find this place all right?" The grandpa speaks up for the first time. "Yes." And the way he says it, it's literally the end of the conversation. No more small talk, not even a single thread to hang on to. But both the grandparents just look like they want to get out of here. Chae-Won turns to Eun-ha for help. "Eun-ha, should we do what we practiced earlier?" Eun-ha shakes her head no and starts hiding even further into her father's legs, but Chae-Won really needs her to try. So she gently pulls Eun-ha to stand in front of her grandparents. Eun-ha is shaking in her little boots, but she puts her hands on her head, basically trying to form like a gigantic heart. But she's a baby, so her arms aren't long enough, so it just looks like a really cute circle instead of a heart. And she says, "Grandma, Grandpa, I love you." She's so freaking cute that you just want to pinch her cheeks, but the grandparents, again, just stare at Eun-ha with zero emotions. And then the grandma's like, "Let's go inside. My feet hurt." Eun-ha drops her hands and sadly tells her parents that Grandma hates her, and Chae-Won is quick to console her daughter. So Chae-Won's family look like they have a very healthy dynamic. Hee-sung stands up for his wife and child, Eun-ha feels safe with her parents, and Chae-Won and Hee-sung show their affection for Eun-ha very openly. So a very, very picture-perfect family. Inside their private dining room in the restaurant, Chae-Won and Eun-ha are cheerfully singing happy birthday to Hee-sung. It's his 39th birthday, and Hee-sung is looking side to side, smiling at both Chae-Won and Eun-ha as they sing. But the grandparents, again, are just sitting there, no emotions. They're not participating, and they don't look happy. It actually looks like they're here just for appearances. Eun-ha excitedly tells her dad that her present for him this year is her, Baek Eun-ha. Hee-sung smiles before thanking her for such a pretty present, and Chae-Won on his other side slides him a physical present. They're watch band replacements, and they're the exact kinds that he has on his watch right now, except instead of the black ones that he has on his wrist, these are brown, and she's even got his initials engraved on the back of them, and it reads HS Peck on the back of the band. Soon enough, Mother Nature comes calling, and Eun-ha tells her mom that she needs to go to the bathroom. So Chae-Won and Eun-ha both exit the room, and this is when the conversation between the grandparents and Hee-sung turns really strange. The grandma breaks the silence. "Did you call us here just to piss us off? Why did you even come? You could have come up with some sort of excuse." "Am I not even allowed to celebrate my son's birthday? Do you feel like your life is your own now?" "Of course not, Mother. It's never once been mine, so I don't really know what that feels like." "Are you being sarcastic with me right now? If it wasn't for me..." And she never gets to finish that thought because the grandpa, who has been silent up until now, slams his water glass down onto the table. "That's enough. We're all on the same boat here. Don't get on each other's nerves unless you want the boat to sink." By this point, both Chae-Won and Eun-ha have come back into the room, effectively putting an end to whatever that conversation was. Chae-Won helps Eun-ha back into her seat before tapping Hee-sung's shoulder. She motions to her phone, and he understands that she needs to leave. He asks her if she needs a ride, but she brushes it off, saying that she can just call a taxi. She then turns to his parents and bows deeply, apologizing. "Mother, Father, I'm sorry. Something came up at work." The grandmother snidely asks if she's taking revenge on them for her turning them away last year. "Of course not, Mother. I really wanted to treat you to a nice meal today, but..." And Hee-sung has had enough. He stands up and tells her that it's okay to leave now. Chae-Won apologizes one more time before rushing out of the room. With Chae-Won's exit, the conversation turns weird again. Thankfully, Eun-ha has fallen asleep in her dad's lap, so she doesn't hear anything that's being said. "She must be dumber than I thought. Your wife, I mean. What your mother means to say is that she didn't know you'd have such a successful marriage. He-sung smiles before saying, Chae-Won and I are made for each other. A guy with a nasty past like yourself liking a cop, and what? You're made for each other? The grandma starts laughing hysterically. You're funny. It's almost like you're a normal human being now. And now the grandpa speaks up. Will you be honest? This is very important to us. Now that you've had a kid with her, do you have some sort of special feelings for her or something? Chae-Won only believes what she sees, and I show her only what she wants to see. So I find it very easy to deal with her. So what I'm saying is that you don't have to worry about me. Now to Chae-Won. We find out that she's a detective at the Gangsu police station, and the reason that she got pulled out of dinner so early today is because of a father. Earlier in the day, around 3 p.m. in an apartment, a boy was found unconscious with a severe head injury in a stairwell inside an apartment building. The boy's name is Kim In-seo, and he is only 12 years old. They had to perform surgery on the boy, and once he woke up, the first thing he did was he pointed to his dad and said, "Dad, it was Dad who pushed me down the stairs. He tried to kill me." According to the boy's testimony, the dad had forced him to climb up and down the stairs of their apartment building, and when In-seo said that he was tired, the dad would fat shame him. He would grab In-seo's belly with his fingers and say things like, "Aren't you disgusted with yourself?" And one day, he got so disgusted that In-seo was his child that he kicked him down the stairs. When In-seo fell unconscious, the dad went to go check to see if he was still breathing before heading back upstairs, just leaving In-seo to bleed to death. But the dad is denying everything. He doesn't know why, but In-seo is lying. The police have taken him in, so In-seo's dad, into the station, and the police are skeptical about the dad's denial of the child's testimony. I mean, what kind of 12-year-old kid would lie to put his own dad in jail, and that too for attempted murder? On top of that, he was supposedly with his son during the time of the incident, and there were no CCTVs in the stairwell. So to the police, it's looking a whole lot like the boy was telling the truth. The dad admits that he did indeed make In-seo climb stairs, but he never ever fat shamed In-seo. He actually climbed them with him, right behind In-seo the whole time, encouraging him. That day, though, he had to leave early because he had gotten a call from his friend Eun-suk, who asked him to meet up that day. He left after telling In-seo to head upstairs for dinner, and he even told him to do some stretches to help with the soreness. That's all he knows. He was drinking with his friend when he got a call from his wife saying that his son was in the hospital. The detective in charge, Detective Choi, gets out of his chair and starts to sniff the dad. Basically, he's looking for the stench of alcohol. When he's satisfied with what he smells, he leaves the interrogation room and makes his way into another room that has Chae-Won and a more junior colleague by the name Ho-jun. And they were both watching from you know how traditional interrogation rooms have that one-way mirror where on one side is the actual interrogation room, and to the people in the interrogation room it just looks like a mirror, but on the other side there's actually like a whole room with people who can watch in on the interrogation. So Chae-Won and Ho-jun are in that room, and Detective Choi goes into that room. Ho-jun, the rookie detective, asks, "Do you really think that he did that to his son? He looks like a decent person." And being the senior role model that he is, Detective Choi spits out some facts. More than 80% of all child abuse cases are by the parents. What about you, Chae-Won? What do you think about the case? I think Kim Sang-jin, the father, is being falsely accused. Everyone says they're innocent in the interrogation room. That's disappointing coming from you, Chae-Won. It's not that, Detective Choi. Look at his shoes. Considering his clothes being a suit, I don't think those slippers are his shoes of choice. I'm assuming they came from the restaurant. He heard about his son at the restaurant and came running. And look, only one of his socks is dirty. He had to run in slippers which weren't his size, so they must have come off. I think that could be circumstantial evidence that he's innocent. Ho-jun is impressed, but Detective Choi doesn't agree. So you see, that's your problem. You have blind faith in evidence. Sometimes you should take a look at the person. Listen to me, the second I went in there and saw Kim Sang-jin's eyes, I got a hunch. It sensed that he was a very bad person. Chae-Won and Detective Choi start bickering when they get called out by their team lead, Woo-chul. Woo-chul assigns each of them tasks to complete for the investigation. He tells Chae-Won to go question the people around the dad, and also to check up on the CCTVs around the area of the apartment. Detective Choi is assigned the task of finding out where Kim Sang-jin was at the time of the incident. Chae-Won and Ho-jun decide to start with Sang-jin's wife, but the press, they work fast. By the time that Chae-Won and Ho-jun arrive there, there's already a reporter by the name of Kim Woo-jin who is already asking the mother a whole bunch of questions. But the mother doesn't really seem to be in a state to be answering these questions. The reporter finds himself having to re-ask the same questions because she'll be so out of it. What? Sorry, I didn't quite understand the question. Can you repeat it? The reporter, Moojin, asks her again. Have you seen your husband treat your son in a way that was oppressive or authoritative? He's quite strict. He hates it when things don't go his way. So he's obsessive. Have you ever felt that he seems to lack empathy? Sorry, I don't understand what that means. At this point, Chae-Won interrupts. I can't wait to see the headlines for your article, Moojin. Ji-won sends Ho-jun and Moojin to wait outside while she questions the mother. Moojin proudly shows off his article title to Ho-jun, I hate my obese child, a father who made his son climb to death. Mr. Kim, you seem a little bit too excited. This is a hospital. Can't you hold back just a little bit? Ho-jun, let me be honest with you. I love cases like this. You know, that makes sense. Actually, these days I enjoy reading the articles you've been posting online. Oh, really? Which one is your favorite? The one about the Yeonju serial murder case? I didn't even know that such a case existed in our country. Yeah, it was horrible. The whole town was just... And Moojin never finishes that thought. Instead, he changes the topic back to the case at hand. What does the boy's father do? Oh, he's a lawyer. Another elite. This is great. I love this. And he tries to write down the job in his little notebook, but of course, his pen doesn't work at such a crucial moment. Ho-jun hands him a pen, and it's a very nice looking pen. When Moojin admires the pen for too long, Ho-jun offers up some information. Detective Ji-won's husband made all these pens for our team. He's a metal craftsman, and this catches Moojin's attention for some reason. A metal craftsman? That's an interesting job. In the other room, Chae-Won is questioning the mom. Did your son ever complain or feel uncomfortable around his dad? The mom doesn't answer. She's completely zoned out, and she's like picking at this label on this orange juice bottle that Chae-Won got for her, and Chae-Won has to try again. Ma'am, I know this is hard for you, but your testimony is really, really important to the case. The mom puts down her orange juice and grabs Chae-Won's hands. Detective, my son isn't someone who lies about such things. He's such a good boy. Then what about your husband? Do you think he's someone who would hurt his son? And at this question, the mom's shackles go up. No, how could you say that? Detective, there's nothing wrong with my family. There's never been anything wrong until now. Chae-Won looks at her concerned, and after a pause, the mom calms down and says that she doesn't know. She doesn't know why something like this happened. And Chae-Won asks one more question. I'm asking this just out of formality, but did you take out any insurance policies on your son? And the mom says yes. Chae-Won, Ho-jun, and Moojin gather at a convenience store to talk about the case. Moojin is proud because his hunch was right. This was all about insurance money in the end. But Chae-Won is quick to prove him wrong. The insurance money that the parents had taken out on their son had a clause that said that a child under 15 cannot receive death benefits. But she also found out that the parents are pretty well off financially, so the problem is probably not finances being the motive. Moojin argues that murder doesn't need such a grand motive. I covered a case once where a man killed 7 people and buried them in a nearby hill for absolutely no reason. Even his wife, who allegedly ran away a long time ago, was found on that hill as a skeleton. What are you talking about? Moojin doesn't answer Chae-Won's question, and instead he goes, Ho-jun told me that your husband is a metal craftsman. The murderer was also a metal craftsman. I feel like I've heard that story somewhere. If I tell you, will you give me a pen like the ones you guys have for free? Chae-Won smiles at this and asks him if he'll promote the shop on his social media if she does. When Moojin says, of course he will, Chae-Won excitedly hands him Hee-sung's business card. And it's really cute because Chae-Won is very obviously so proud of Hee-sung and his business, and she just wants to show him off to everybody. And we learn that the name of Hee-sung's shop is Where the Rising Sun Stays. Chae-Won heads back home, and as she's winding down to change into new clothes to head back to the station, she's talking through the case with Hee-sung. Do you know what the weirdest thing about this case is? The victim's mother is also the suspect's wife. Her son woke up after nearly dying and accused his father of attempted murder, and according to her, her family is perfect. That's all she keeps saying. To have gotten this far, there had to have been science. I don't know how she could be so clueless. Is she avoiding the truth, or is she covering it up? Either way, it's not right. The conversation then changes to the in-laws. Chae-Won doesn't understand why they hate her so much. I mean, I've got a great personality, I'm a beauty, I even gave them a grandchild, and I'm a civil servant, so I have a stable job. Just what is my weakness, honey? And they joke around a little bit about how much she likes bragging about herself before she asks him seriously if he's upset because she's ruining his relationship with his parents. Maybe it would have been better if she hadn't seduced him all those years ago. But Heesung reassures her that he loves her and that she shouldn't be thinking things like this. And after a little moment, Chae-Won heads back to the station to go through the CCTV footage for the investigation. The footage does prove a few of Ji-won's suspicions correct. First of all, the slippers are definitely from the restaurant, because even at the moment that Sang-jin was walking out of the apartment, he was only wearing dress shoes. And two, his walk out of the apartment didn't seem like he was, flustered or trying to run away. He almost looked excited. So either he is a serial killer who gets off on killings, or he did not push his child down the stairs. The next morning, Heesung drops In-ha off at school and converses with the teachers for a little bit, and even gives them like this little lunchbox filled with fruits for all the teachers to eat during the break, for turning around and making a phone call to his mom, telling her that he's gonna come by for a bit. Meanwhile, Moojin is at a cafe looking through one of the articles that he's written on the Yeonju serial killer case, and while we're being shown the article, we get one little detail about the case. The killer's name is To Min-seok, and he has a son. After looking at the article for a bit, Moojin scrolls down all the way to the comment sections, and all the comments are along the lines of how they couldn't sleep because of how scared they were, or questions about whether psychopathy is genetic. Which is actually true, by the way. Scientists, psychologists, or doctors, whoever conducts these studies actually believes that there is indeed a psychopathic gene, and it can be inherited. Of course, it's not like the end-all be-all situation where if you have this gene, you are 100% going to be a psychopath. And there's actually another Korean drama called Mouse that explores this premise, and it's absolutely fascinating. I'm going to cover that drama at a later date, but go watch it if you're interested. It's with Joon-Gi, so another reason, because he's a really good actor as well. Anyway, Moojin's comment reading gets interrupted by his phone ringing. The phone call lets us know that Moojin was supposed to meet with Seung-gil, who is a chef, this afternoon, but the chef is now, bailing because he's got a sudden influx of customers at his restaurant. They rescheduled to tomorrow, but Moojin has to ask just to double check. Seung-gil, are you sure it was Tohyun-soo? Seung-gil, who up until this point had been tossing vegetables in his pan, stops tossing, turns off the stove, and in a scared but stern voice says, Moojin, Tohyun-soo isn't someone I can forget just because I want to. Moojin believes it and attempts to write down the address that they're going to meet up tomorrow, but he'd forgotten that his pen had ran out of ink. He reaches into his bag to find another pen, but when he can't get one fast enough, he takes his whole bag, flips it over, and basically dumps all of the contents inside of it onto the table in front of him, and he finds a pen, but the pen is also wrapped around a silver necklace with a blue pendant. And we find out that the pendant belongs to To Hae-soo, and from the few glimpses that we get via Moojin's very flowery memories, she seems like his childhood crush. Somewhere else in town, Heesung is telling his mom to call Chae-Won. One thing to know is that the mother is a pharmacist, so it looks like Heesung's family is actually pretty well off financially. Anyway, the reason Heesung wants his mother to call Chae-Won is because she keeps giving Chae-Won false hope that their relationship can get better, as long as Chae-Won keeps trying. He wants his mom to call her and throw such a fit that Chae-Won will never ever think about inviting her or his father to anything ever again. So oddly enough, Heesung is the one who is sabotaging the relationship between Chae-Won and the in-laws. He's basically trying to get it so that they never show up in front of his family again. But the mom, she can't accept that. And she grabs Heesung's collar and says, I have a right to your life. Heesung pulls her hand off of his collar and holds her hand before saying, Mom, my life is yours, as long as I live as Baek Heesung. But you know, Chae-Won, you can't fool her. You're not as good as I am. And the grandma pulls her hand away from Heesung, and she looks almost frightened. Back at the police station, Ho-jin finds something in the CCTV footage that might help them in the investigation. In the footage, they see a little boy getting onto the elevator on the 6th floor, and they know that In-seo's accident happened between the 5th and the 6th floor, so maybe this boy knows something. And to make it stranger, the boy looks straight at the CCTV cameras after entering the elevator. I feel like most of the time, if you live in a building, the CCTV in the elevator isn't something that you normally pay attention to very much. Like, yeah, maybe the first time you're there, you look directly at it, but after a while, you kind of just lose interest. So it's strange that this little boy is suddenly looking at it. Meanwhile, Detective Choi is at a hospital waiting to meet with Bae Eun-suk. Eun-suk is the friend that In-so's dad was supposed to meet with, the one he went to go have drinks and dinner with. And Detective Chae is surprised to find out that Eun-suk is a girl. Whenever Sang-jin spoke about her, he made it seem like he was talking about a man. But regardless, he gets to business and starts asking questions. When you met Sang-jin yesterday, was there anything different about him? No, not really. He seemed pretty much the same. He was quite humorous, until he got that phone call and heard that In-so got hurt. That's strange. Why did you not go with him? It's not like you two had anything to hide, right? And his son used to be a patient here. Actually, I drank too much that night. It's not that I didn't want to go, it was more that I couldn't go with him. Detective Chae once again gets up out of his seat and starts sniffing. The doctor backs away, obviously uncomfortable, but Detective Chae got what he needed from his nose, whatever answers that it provided for him. He tells her that she reeked of alcohol. The doctor at this point is trying to get rid of Detective Chae fast because he's freaking her out. And Detective Chae agrees to leave, but he asks her to call him if she remembers anything, and he reaches into his pocket to pull out his business card, and while he's searching for it, a whole bunch of coins just fall out of his pocket onto the floor below. He bends down to start collecting the coins and asks the doctor to help him out. She's annoyed, obviously, but nonetheless, she bends down to pick them up because the faster she can get him out of there, the better for her. Now, while she's helping him pick up his coins, he pops up for like 0.2 seconds and pockets her phone that was laying on her desk. Detective Chae takes her phone to one of his, off-the-book hackers. He gets access to her photo gallery, and in there he finds the photos of Sang-jin and Eun-suk being all lovey-dovey while on a hiking trip. This is evidence that Sang-jin was cheating on his wife. Detective Chae is ecstatic because he was able to smell it. Sang-jin reeked of a woman's perfume, and when he sniffed Eun-suk earlier, she smelled of the exact same perfume. Detective Chae sends a text to Chae-Won informing her of the affair and asks her to get the wife's testimony so that they can close the case. Now let's bring it back to a little bit before Chae-Won actually gets this text. Her and Ho-jun have made their way to the hospital to talk to the mom, but before they can reach the hospital door, they hear a scream coming from inside In-so's room. Chae-Won opens the door to see that the mother looks shocked, and her yellow multivitamin bottle is on the ground and the white pills are just scattered all around the room. Basically, the mom threw the pill bottle on the ground when she had opened them because she saw a cockroach in there. She tells Chae-Won that she takes those vitamins daily, but today she suddenly saw a cockroach. Hearing this, Chae-Won grows even more concerned. There's no way a cockroach got in there by chance. It had to have been planted there. The mom asks Chae-Won and Ho-jun what they're doing here, and she shows them the photo of the boy that they caught on the CCTV. Oh, he lives on the 12th floor, apartment number 1201. His name is... Why can't I remember his name? Oh, right, Ji-hoon, Yoon Ji-hoon. And then the mom asks how her husband is doing. But while all of this questioning is going on, Chae-Won notices one more detail. The buttons on her cardigans are done incorrectly. Concerned, Chae-Won asks the mom how she's doing, if she's eating anything, but the mom isn't interested in anything except telling Chae-Won about how well In-so and Sang-jin got along. They even go hiking together. And it's at this point when they get Detective Chae's message about the affair, along with a whole bunch of pictures of Sang-jin and Eun-suk together. But both the detectives, Ho-jun and Chae-Won, decide to keep the mother in the dark about this. Let's jump to Moo-jin. He's made his way to Hee-sung's store, and if you remember that silver necklace with the blue pendant that he had found in his bag earlier, it was broken, and he wanted to get it fixed. And since he already has the business card to Detective Chae's husband's, not Detective Chae's, Chae-Won's husband's business, he decides to head there instead. Hee-sung doesn't pay attention to Moo-jin initially because he's finishing up welding a piece, but when he hears that someone recommended him to this place, Hee-sung puts his work on a pause and is curious about who it was. He stands up from his workstation, looks at Moo-jin, and after a few seconds, both of their smiles are completely gone. Hee-sung tries to shoo Moo-jin away, saying that he's closing early today, but Moo-jin doesn't want to let him go that easily. He calls out to Hee-sung, but instead of Hee-sung, he calls him Toyeon-soo. The name causes Hee-sung to freeze in his tracks, and Moo-jin gets a little bit closer. You're Hyun-soo, right? Hee-sung looks like he's thinking about a lot of different things before he makes a decision. He turns around and says, "So, what are you planning on doing with that information?" And Hee-sung looks like he's about to murder Moo-jin. Moo-jin looks like he's about to shit his pants, but he manages to say, "Well, I'm not trying to do anything. I was just startled. I'm here to meet with Mr. Baek Hee-sung, Detective Cha Ji-won's husband. Instead of answering, Hee-sung asks Moo-jin if he knows Chae-Won, and Moo-jin confirms that he's pretty close to her. After smiling an unsettling smile, Hee-sung asks Moo-jin if he wants a glass of tea. Moo-jin is obviously too scared to say no, so he just stands there watching as Hee-sung brews some tea. Now back to Chae-Won. Her and Ho-jin are now in their car heading back to the station when Ho-jin asks her why she didn't tell the mother about the affair. And Chae-Won responds, "It's not that I didn't want to. I just don't think Detective Choi got the phone by asking Eun-suk to borrow it. I didn't tell her because the evidence might not even be admissible. Plus, the affair has nothing to do with this case." And that's when Chae-Won gets another text from Detective Choi about how Sang-jin had been meeting with a divorce lawyer. The lawyer said that he'd been stressed out about child support. Let's bring it back to Hee-sung. He's pouring Moo-jin his tea, and Moo-jin tries to make some small talk. "You know, I almost didn't recognize you." "But you did. You did recognize me." "I guess I did. I mean, we grew up in the same neighborhood after all. Anyway, you've changed a lot." Moo-jin awkwardly looks around, unsure about what to say, and Hee-sung is like, "Just ask me what you want to ask me. I know there was something you wanted to ask the moment you saw me." Moo-jin denies it and shifts uncomfortably in his seat. And then he tells Hee-sung that he needs to get going because there's this previous appointment that he needs to make. But Hee-sung stops him again. "Don't you want to know? I bet you're curious. You're a reporter, after all. Ask me." And of course, Moo-jin's curiosity gets the best of him. Moo-jin sits back down and takes up Hee-sung's offer. "Actually, I don't believe anything that's not confirmed, so the rumors about you are still kind of like a novel to me. I don't know whether you know or not, but 18 years ago, so the day that you disappeared from town, there was a murder. The village foreman died." Hee-sung takes a sip of his tea before looking at Moo-jin again. So, does it have anything to do with you?" "What's the point in denying it? Everyone thinks I did it anyway. You, the village people, the police." "Then why was the murder weapon found in your backpack? Why are you still wanted? If you're innocent, you should cooperate with the police investigation and clear your name." Hee-sung leans forward. "How do you know that I'm still wanted? Did you look into it? Why?" Moo-jin is once again flustered, and he tries to make up an excuse about how he heard about it somewhere, because he's a reporter, but it doesn't look like Hee-sung is buying it. Moo-jin tries to get up once more to leave, but Hee-sung's words stop him again. "So, will you go straight to the police and say that you met Do-hyun-soo, who killed the village head in Gagyeong-ri 18 years ago? Is that your plan?" Moo-jin frantically explains that he wouldn't do that. He's not interested in other people's businesses. And now Hee-sung's questions start to take a slightly concerning turn. Hee-sung asks Moo-jin if he's married, and he confirms that Moo-jin works for the daily newspaper. And then he smiles before saying, "Then you must work flexible hours." We'll continue this conversation later, but for now, let's go back to Chae-Won. Her and Ho-jin have reached Yoon Ji-hoon's house, the little boy that was caught on the CCTV, and he tells them the truth. Ji-hoon had lost his dog, Tol, in the stairwell, and by the time that Ji-hoon had found him, Tol was barking at In-so. In-so, however, is afraid of dogs, and Tol had actually bitten him once in the past, so In-so had started edging closer and closer to the stairs, and eventually he fell and rolled all the way down because he lost his footing. The kid never told his mom, so it wasn't like the parents were trying to hide the kid or protect him from going to jail or something like that. But the reason he never told the parents was because In-so's mom had told him that if Tol ever did something like that to In-so again, where she's referring to the biting incident, then she would have the dog put down. He was just scared to lose his dog. Chae-Won's mom apologizes on Chae-Won's behalf, and he was just scared because In-so's mom is usually a very meticulous and rigid person. Chae-Won and Ho-jin get back into the car and quickly inform Detective Choi of the situation. And although he's upset, Detective Choi lets Sang-jin go, and Sang-jin books it to the hospital. Meanwhile, Ho-jin and Chae-Won head to a pharmacy to get some medicine for Ho-jin because his tooth starts to hurt. And Ho-jin is curious about why In-so lied. In the pharmacy, Chae-Won figures it out. She's looking at the bottle of the multivitamins that In-so's mom was trying to take earlier, and the color of the pills. The ones inside the pharmacy are yellow, but the pills that they saw thrown onto the ground in the hospital were white. And slowly, things start to fall into place. The images of Sang-jin and Eun-suk on a hike, In-so's mom telling Chae-Won that the father and son were so close that they would go hiking together, Chae-hoon's mom's statement about In-so's mom being meticulous and rigid, and the buttons on the mom's cardigan being mismatched, and how she was unable to recall Chae-hoon's name. Chae-Won rushes to the hospital. At the hospital, the dad is staring at Inso that, I don't know, honestly it kind of rubs me the wrong way, the way he's staring at him. He tells the mom to get out of the room because he needs to talk with Inso privately. The mom initially puts up a fight, but eventually gives in and is walking out when Chae-Won bursts in. Chae-Won sits down next to Inso, pulls out her phone, and starts a voice recording. It was you, right? The one who put a cockroach in the pill bottle so that your mom couldn't take the pills? I know that you have a reason for lying. Inso, you should tell your mom. It's her decision to make. Inso instead says that he wants his mom to wait outside. He doesn't want his mom to hear what he has to say. Once the mom, dad, and Hojin are outside, Inso starts telling Chae-Won everything. His dad is a good person, or at least he's a good person to Inso. Him and his dad had gone hiking one day and he was surprised to see Inso join them. At first, Inso didn't think much of it. She was his doctor and they're on good terms. But when Inso had gone to explore the mountains, his dad and Eun-seok were being all lovey-dovey with each other. He'd come down to get some tissues and that's when he saw his dad kissing her on the cheek while talking with her. And to make things worse, the doctor, Eun-seok, had given his dad a bottle of pills. She said that they were pills that temporarily block nerve impulses, that they're not dangerous or anything, and the person that's taking them should go back to normal soon. But Inso's dad then goes on to tell Eun-seok about how much of a different person the mom has become since he started giving her these pills. She's slow, dull, and blank all day. One day, Eun-seok's lipstick stain had been left on his shirt, and the dad had gotten caught. He'd lied to the mom, saying that he'd gotten paint on his shirt to see if he could get away with it, and it actually worked. Eun-seok told him to just get the divorce papers, and Sang-jin complains about how hard it is to try to divorce someone and to get to keep his money and get to have custody of his child. Eun-seok just couldn't tell his mom this. He kept telling himself that he should, that he has to, but he couldn't bring himself to say it. He thought that if he could make his dad out to be a bad person, then at least his mom would feel less sad when the divorce came around. He apologizes to Ji-won about lying while crying. Outside the room, the mother is worried about what they're talking about for so long, and the dad is fuming because Ji-won is forcing a statement from a minor without a parent present. Soon after, Ji-won exits and walks straight up to Sang-jin. Since you're a lawyer, you must know what kind of crime it is to make somebody take drugs without their consent. Mr. Kim, you're under arrest for causing Miss Ko bodily harm. You have the right to remain silent or request an attorney. And she handcuffs the mother figure and Hojin drags him away. Back with Mujin, who at this point is still trying to get out of Hee-sung's store without raising suspicion. Hee-sung is wrapping up what looks to be like a vase or something like that. It's to make sure that you don't tell anyone that you saw me today. It's a bribe. Hee-sung finishes up the packaging and asks Mujin to come over here so that he can write down the address that he can deliver this vase to. And while Mujin is writing down the address, Hee-sung closes the curtains, locks the front door, and turns up the stereo. Back at the hospital, Chae-Won is wondering if the mom really didn't know about the pills. Sometimes there's some truths that can destroy your life immediately, and you know that it'll eventually have to come out. But if you can delay that moment just by one day, I think I can take that pill. Detective Chae is also at the hospital, and he too agrees that he simply eats everything that his wife puts in front of him, so he'd probably eat it even if he knew that she had given him some poison. And Hojin is confused as to why the married people are behaving like this. And then Chae-Won and Detective Chae get into an agreement about who was right. If it was Chae-Won because Sang-jin didn't push his kid, or if it was Detective Chae because he knew Sang-jin was bad from the beginning. And it's in the middle of this conversation that Chae-Won gets a call from her mother-in-law. She excuses herself to pick it up, and it's not really what Chae-Won needed at the moment. I don't like you. Are you in your right mind? Do you think that you deserve Hee-sung? He's the son of a university hospital director. I'll try to be even better, mother. They say that daughters take after their moms, and your mom made her husband die. Mother, your words are a bit... You haven't changed at all, have you? You used your pregnancy to marry my son, and now you're using your kid to force your way through. Do you think that you can take my money like that? Listen carefully. You disgust me. Let's never contact each other again. Mother, about today's call, I hope that you can not tell Hee-sung about it. He doesn't show it, but he's very hurt that we don't get along. And the phone call ends there, and then we get transported back to the metal shop. Moojin is being choked by Hee-sung. There's a lot of struggling and lots of things that are falling onto the ground, but eventually Moojin stops moving and his hands fall limp. We see Chae-Won making her way home, and when she opens the door, the sight before her causes her to freeze. Hee-sung is happily playing with Eunha while making dinner, and Chae-Won joins in on their fun, and it's like they're like a normal family. But in the basement of their house, in a room filled with hammers and pliers, Moojin is gagged and tied up, struggling to release himself, with only a grandfather clock to keep him company. So this is the end of episode 1, and in the beginning of episode 2, we start off with a flashback, and this is actually a common occurrence throughout this drama where we start every episode where we get a glimpse into the past. And there's no set time frame per se, but they're all things that took place before the present day's events, so before 2020. And these flashbacks give us insights into our characters, like the relationships between them, and how they came to be who they are. And they're really fascinating to watch. Episode 2 starts off with a flashback to the summer of 2006. Young Chae-Won, who is not really young, probably in her early 20s, is studying for her police exam while manning the cash register for this convenience store that her family owns. And a young Hee-sung comes up to her with 2 cans of beer in his hands. And this Hee-sung looks very different from the Hee-sung that we've seen up until now. Young Hee-sung has bleached his hair, so he's completely blonde, and his face is not as expressive. There's not a single emotion on display there. Chae-Won stands up to ask him for his ID, and he shows it to her, and Chae-Won sees that he was born in 1982. 1982? You look very young. Are you new here? How did you know? I've just never seen you around before. This neighborhood is a good place for me to have a fresh start. It's quiet. And that is how they first met. Now, back in present day, Hee-sung is in the bathroom watching a video about expressions. And the video goes, "This time, let's take a look at a happy face. You shouldn't exaggerate it. First, the wrinkles should form around your eyes. Second, your cheeks should rise up. And third, the wrinkles around your eyes should move." And I don't know if it's because we know he's practicing smiling or just the way that he's smiling, but something about it is deeply unsettling. And again, once he exits the bathroom, you can't tell that he's someone who is just learning how to mimic a smile in the bathroom. He's making breakfast when Chae-Won, feeling playful, sneaks up behind him, and she's smiling from ear to ear, and Hee-sung studies her expression. Seeing her lips upturned, her eyes crinkled, he crinkles his eyes too, smiling back. Chae-Won's smile grows even wider seeing his smile, and she tells him that she dreamt about their first meeting. Chae-Won tries to, help around the kitchen, but she's not very good at it, so Hee-sung asks her to go give Eunha a bath instead. Once Eunha is all dressed up and the only thing that's left to do is to dry Eunha's hair, Eunha wants her dad to do it, so Chae-Won goes down to the shop to see if there's anything she can help clean up over there. When Eunha comes to her father to tell him to help her dry her hair because Chae-Won had gone down to clean up in the workshop, Hee-sung rushes down there because remember, Moojin is still in the basement. By the time he gets inside, Chae-Won has picked up one of the broken pieces of the teacup that had shattered in the tussle between Hee-sung and Moojin yesterday. Did you make a teacup? You cherish this one a lot. He plays it off as him being careless and takes the piece from Chae-Won. He then tries to lead her upstairs, and Chae-Won gets a little curious. "Who did you drink with?" "No one special, just a customer." "I don't believe you. I bet you were really happy to see them. You give cold drinks to anybody that you want to say bye to quickly, and warm drinks to people you want to chat with. I know you better than you do, so tell me, who did you drink tea with and chat with for so long? You're not close to many people." Hee-sung says that it was a friend, and Chae-Won gets more curious. "What friend? Did they come to our wedding?" "No, he's an old friend from middle school. We met by coincidence." "But you said that you didn't have any friends back then." Still, it was nice to see him after all these years. And as he leads her out of the shop, he studies her face again. His gaze is actually really intense, and Chae-Won feels that. But in her mind, she thinks that he's looking at her because she's the prettiest person on the planet to him, when in reality, he's studying her expressions to figure out how she's feeling. All the while that this is going on above ground, below ground, Moojin is still struggling to get free. He's struggling more and more frantically when he hears Chae-Won upstairs, but all that got him was more blood on the cable tie that was using to hold his wrist behind his back. Somewhere else, a young woman is climbing up a hill and stops in front of a house. She knocks on the door, but there's no response. She's surprised to find the door open, but enters the house anyway, and as soon as she turns to enter the living room, she sees small drops of blood near the entryway. And just a couple feet away is a grandma, collapsed onto the ground with blood and food all around her. The police get called in, and it's almost immediately confirmed that this is a crime scene. The grandma has stab wounds near her chest and a rope around her neck. Detective Chae immediately notices that the grandma's thumbnails are missing, and this immediately reminds Ho-jun of the Yeonju serial killings. All 7 victims of those killings were missing their thumbnails. The killer, however, had committed suicide before the police could actually catch him, and the case was closed. And then it got buried under the Soccer World Cup. So, is this a copycat killer? Now let's check up on Moo-jin. Hee-sung has closed down his shop earlier today before going down into the basement. Moo-jin, who is still struggling, starts struggling even more when he sees Hee-sung coming down the stairs. Hee-sung sits down and rips the tape off of Moo-jin's mouth. And Moo-jin immediately opens his mouth. Hyunsu, why are you doing this? You're committing a crime, you know that, right? Do you remember? 18 years ago, I was in your shoes. And we get a flashback to Hee-sung's middle school time. So back in 2002, Moo-jin and his 2 friends had beat up Hyunsu, and they had dragged him into a forest where they proceeded to tie him up to a tree. And the reason Moo-jin is so angry, Hyunsu broke Moo-jin's finger. But instead of cowering in fear like Moo-jin had expected him to, Hyunsu keeps angering Moo-jin. He's saying things like, I should have snapped your neck, or next time I'll crack your skull. And hearing this, Moo-jin says, be honest, you've seen your dad kill someone, right? Did you really not know, or were you pretending not to know? If not, then are the rumors true? Were you in on it? You're afraid of me, aren't you? And this piece pisses off middle school Moo-jin even more because he instructs his friends to find some rocks in the nearby area, and then they start throwing them at Hyunsu, saying that if they leave him be, he'll turn out just like his father. And to make it worse, Moo-jin literally tells him that if it hurts, then he shouldn't hold in his tears and screams, because that way it'll be more fun for Moo-jin. And as he's getting pelted, Hyunsu told Moo-jin to remember this, because he is next. Now, after 18 years, Moo-jin's time has come. Hee-sung looks at him before picking up a hammer that was hung on this barbed wire fence that was behind Moo-jin, and he slowly starts moving the hammer around Moo-jin's face before saying, if it hurts a lot, don't hold it in and tell me. That way, it'll be more fun for me. He pushes Moo-jin's face to the side, and Moo-jin is trying to plead with him that they were young, that's just how young people were, and how he wasn't the only one who did that. Hee-sung smiles and removes the hammer from Moo-jin's face. I'm joking. If I wanted to kill you, I would have spread vinyl on the floor. What do you want from me? If it's money, I'll give it to you as much as you want. Right now, I'm really scared and frightened, and I can't feel my arms and legs. Moo-jin, I'm just like my dad. You can try all you want to make me pity you, but I won't feel a thing. So don't cry. You're just making me want to spread the floor with vinyl. Hee-sung then takes out Moo-jin's phone. From now on, don't make me repeat myself. Tell me your passcode. His wife, on the other hand, is meeting with the forensics officers. The forensics person is telling them that the marks on the grandma's back are violet, and that means that she was on the floor for about 8 to 9 hours. I don't see any ligature marks, and the rope was there for no reason at all. She was stabbed and cut 8 times. It means that she probably died due to excessive bleeding. But I don't see any blood here near her ankle. Her ankle broke after she died. It looks like her thumbnails were taken after her death too. And Chae-Won has a question. Why do you think the culprit only removed her thumbnail? If it's to get rid of DNA or any kind of evidence, the culprit should have removed all her other nails as well. The forensics doctor compares this case to the Yeonju serial murder case. Tomin-seok collected his victims' thumbnails. They were like souvenirs for him. And then the doctor sees something strange. The thumb of the grandma has this like red paint-like thing on it. It's not blood, but it might be a clue to something else, so the doctor takes a sample. In the meantime, the detectives gather in a room to talk about the case. Chae-Won and Ho-jun are convinced that this is a copycat killer, but the rest of the gang isn't so sure. They are convinced that Korea doesn't really have copycat killers, and Detective Chae believes that someone who knew the grandma killed her and used Domonseok's MO as a distraction. Detective Chae's statement is not unfounded though, because on the scene they found that the last thing that she ate before she died was apples. The killer and her must have been eating apples when she was killed, because the apple peels were found at the crime scene, but the knife was missing. The knife must have been the murder weapon. The grandma and the killer must have gotten into an argument while eating, and the killer became enraged and those were the events of that night. We also learned that the police don't have CCTV footage because the one that was located in front of the grandma's house was broken. And another interesting tidbit was that the grandma was rich. She owned this little kimbap store, but she had lent people in the market money all the time, and they always paid her back. She also donated around 370 million won to the Kangsu Community Center, and according to the social worker who had found the body, the community center paid special attention to her, as in they made sure to regularly check up on her. She also had a son who honestly is not a very good son. After hearing about his mother's death, he did cry and put on a scene, but once the police were gone, he starts going through the grandma's kimbap store and started searching for her ledger. Chae-Won, however, is still bothered by Min-seok. The case didn't even get a whole lot of coverage, so why copy Min-seok? And that's when Ho-jin remembers Moo-jin's article. So what is Moo-jin doing? He is still tied up in Hee-sung's basement, but he's now sitting in a chair where he's talking to his boss, telling her that he won't be able to come into work today. And he gives her like these subtle hints saying that he'll come in tomorrow for sure, but she just blows him off because Moo-jin never really showed up for work to begin with and just tells him to turn in his work on time before the deadline, and then she hangs up on him. Funny thing about kidnapping, actually, my friend and I, we talked about a situation like this because we were watching another drama, and we were basically like, our solution to this whole kidnapping situation would have been like, if one of us ever gets kidnapped and we're made to make a phone call to give like an update like this, then we would call each other and we'd basically put like a small lie into the conversation that we were having that for sure the other person knows is not true. For example, I have an older sister and my friend knows that to be a fact. So in the phone call, I would sneak in something about how my younger brother is doing, or that particular friend is a pharmacy major. So I would say something about how her classes in computer science are going. Something that would set off alarms in her head, and hopefully she would contact the authorities. Anyway, that was our little plan if we ever got kidnapped, and we'll see. I hope we never have to use it, but if we do, it may or may not work. We'll see. Anyway, Hee-sung slightly taunts Moo-jin, saying that he has 3 days until someone reports Moo-jin missing. And now Moo-jin starts to pull things out of his butt. We're in the basement of Baek Hee-sung's workshop, right? You're his employee. Yesterday, I agreed to meet with Mr. Baek. Well, his wife introduced me to his workshop, and his wife is a detective in the violent crimes unit. Do you still not get it? You'll be caught in no time. Hee-sung grabs a stool and sits down, getting eye level with Moo-jin. Moo-jin, do you still not get it? Do you know why you're locked down here? How do you think I got away with being a wanted man for 18 years? And again, Moo-jin looks like he's about to shit his pants. Wait, you're Baek Hee-sung? You're Detective Cha's husband? Why? You said yesterday that you had nothing to do with the village foreman dying. That's what you told me yesterday. Do you want to know the truth? Once you know, though, you'll have to pay for it. What? Actually, I don't think I want to know, but Hee-sung is determined to tell him. Moo-jin, I know who killed the village foreman. I bet you're curious. And at this point, Moo-jin is frantically shaking his head no, raising his voice to not do this to him because he knows that the moment Hee-sung tells him who killed the village foreman, he's not getting out of here alive. When Moo-jin starts getting too loud, Hee-sung takes the piece of tape that was around Moo-jin's mouth originally and puts it back on Moo-jin's mouth, but he never takes his hand off of Moo-jin's mouth. Instead, he gets very close to Moo-jin's ear and says, "You're right, it was me." And we get a flashback to the death of the village foreman. He's lying on the ground and Hyun-soo is holding a knife in his hand. His uniform is all bloodied, but he's not the only one at the scene. To Hae-soo is also there. And just to jog your memory, Hae-soo is the girl that we saw in Moo-jin's memories with the silver necklace and the blue pendant, the one that he wanted Hee-sung to fix, but ended up getting him kidnapped instead. So Hae-soo is also there with blood on her uniform, and she says, "Hyun-soo, this is wrong. You can't do this. Hand that over to me." But instead of handing it over, he smiles and says, "Hae-soo, it actually doesn't feel all that bad." And that smile that he has on his face is really freaking unsettling. The child actor for Hyun-soo, amazing. In the police station, Chae-Won is pouring through the Yeonju-seo murder case files, and Ho-jin is looking through articles that Moo-jin had written about To Min-seok. When he finds the article, he calls Chae-Won over. The following was done to all of To Min-seok's victims: a noose around the neck and a permanent injury to the ankle. What was most disturbing, though, was the fact that both thumbnails had been removed. What do you think? Aren't these details similar? But if you fact-check the actual facts of the serial murders, they tell a completely different story. It wasn't a noose around the victims' necks. It was a dog leash from the brand Hound Dog. The killer only used one of a particular brand, but the police never revealed any details about that, so I can understand the mix-up. However, the killer, if they were a copycat, he or she would know that Min-seok tied a dog leash on the victim's necks. The article describes the ankle injury as permanent, but no bones were broken, which means that the Achilles tendon was ruptured. In other words, the culprit doesn't know about Min-seok at all. What if the killer did this to throw us off? That Detective Chae was right. The killer definitely had a motive, and this was made to make it seem like there wasn't one, right? Chae-Won is still questioning why Min-seok. Of all the more prolific killers that they could have tried to imitate, why someone relatively unknown like Min-seok? But her thoughts get interrupted because Eunha's kindergarten school principal is calling her, and the principal asks Chae-Won to come to school right away. Usually it's Hee-sung that gets called to school about this kind of stuff, so what is he doing? Well, he just left Moo-jin alone and locked up the basement door before heading to the dresser in his shop. I'm pretty sure that he needs one because his clothes probably get dirty all the time, but he pushes all the clothes to the side and opens this hidden compartment in his dresser. He pulls out Moo-jin's bag, turns off Moo-jin's phone, and puts the phone into the bag and hides the bag back into the dresser compartment. He then heads over to his phone where he sees that he has 2 missed calls from Eunha's school. So what actually happened at school? Well, Eunha had hugged one of her classmates' dolls without her permission, and the classmate decided to punch Eunha in the nose for touching her stuff. Eunha got a nosebleed from it, and now Chae-Won's classmate's mother is arguing about who should apologize to whom. Chae-Won says that the other girl should apologize because you can't just punch your friend whenever they want to touch your stuff. And the other mom argues that Eunha should be the one to apologize because she touched the doll without permission, and even takes it one step further by saying that if Chae-Won doesn't control her now, Eunha will grow up to be a thief. At this point, Chae-Won is ready to throw some punches of her own, but it's at this moment that Hee-sung shows up. Chae-Won is looking for him, to provide some kind of backup, but she gets none of that. Instead, Hee-sung says that he's sorry and he bows to the mother to apologize. I'll educate her properly from now on. Eunha, apologize to Soo-young. Chae-Won tries to stop him, but he's stern. Eunha, apologize. Eunha starts crying and apologizes to the mother, to Soo-young, and even to the school principal. They disperse, and outside, Hee-sung gets an earful from Chae-Won. You ignored Eunha's feelings. Why would you apologize? You made us seem like idiots. But it's true that Eunha touched Soo-young's doll first. Who punches their friend because they touched their doll? Do you seriously understand that? It's impossible to understand everyone. I just wanted to deal with the situation first. Deal with it? Do you really think you dealt with this properly? What about Eunha? She's been quiet for a while now. You're her favorite person. Imagine how hurt she must feel. And again, Hee-sung closely studies Chae-Won's face. Her lips are turned downward, her brows are furrowed, and she's not looking at him. And after studying her face, he says, Chae-Won, did I make a terrible mistake? I'm sorry for upsetting you. It's my first time being a dad, so I'm still struggling. From now on, I'll first ask you about what needs to be done and then do as you tell me. Sure you will. You're full of lip service. Just do what you can to make Eunha feel better. Hee-sung tells her to leave it up to him, and then Chae-Won gets a call from the forensics department. The red paint-like thing that they had found on the grandma's thumb was lipstick. But the thing that makes this piece of evidence so confusing is that the grandma wasn't wearing any makeup. Getting back to the case, the social worker is walking out of the community center when the grandma's son approaches her. Hey you, where's the ledger that my mom kept? Come on, I'm desperate. I need cash right now. I don't know. How should I know where it is? Who else would know? My mom told you just about everything. You need to get your life together. Do you have any idea how worried your mother was? Don't get cheeky with me and hand over the ledger. It's mine now anyway. Mr. An, your mother just passed away. Where is your humanity? What? How dare you? And he grabs the social worker's collar when a voice from the back shouts, What do you think you're doing? And in broad daylight? Detective Chae had come over to ask Soo-young, the social worker, some questions when he saw her being manhandled. He separates the two of them and sits down to talk with the social worker. She tells him about Mr. An's gambling problems and how concerned the grandma was about his habits before asking him why he's here. I'm investigating the people who might have held a grudge on Miss Jung. I thought that maybe you could give me some names? I heard that this might be done by a serial murderer. Is that not true? The culprit just tried to confuse the investigation, but they did it very clumsily. The person stabbed the body way too many times. Amateurs tend to stab people, here and there with shallow cuts because they don't know how to kill someone on the first try. They make a huge mess of, please stop. It's really hard for me to listen to you. Gosh, sorry. I don't know if this might help, but she called me last night and asked me to do something regarding the will. She had a few questions. She wrote her will and wanted to know how to get it notarized. I told her that I'll visit the next day and explain it to her. Meanwhile, Hee-sung has taken Eunha to this little bakery to help her feel better, and Eunha is just staring at her little egg tart, arms crossed and mouth shut. Why aren't you eating? This is egg tart, your favorite. You're my favorite, but you like Soo-young more than me. You took her side. I'm on your side, and I'm going to raise you to become a nice kid. You have a good reputation now. What's that? It means that no one will doubt you when something bad happens. But if you have a bad reputation, people will doubt you first. After what happened today, Soo-young and her mother will have a very bad reputation. Who cares? I was the one who apologized, and I was the one who got a nosebleed. I feel so upset. Don't be too upset. I saw Soo-young crying earlier on the way home because she lost her doll. It's because she didn't take good care of her stuff. Eunha, don't ever be like her, okay? And as he's saying this, we see Soo-young's doll being thrown into a trash can in a bathroom by none other than Hee-sung. So he got his revenge for his kid without ruining her reputation. But Eunha doesn't need to know that. She's now happily munching on her egg tart, telling her dad that he's her favorite person in the whole wide world. Detective Chae managed to get his hands on the grandma's will, and he slams it down in front of the son. In return for agreeing to hold a memorial service for me after I die, I shall donate all my money to the Kangsoon Welfare Center. Chung-Moon-ok. She kept it in a box deep inside her dresser, along with her ledger. Darn it, this makes no sense. No, I bet that wench made her write this. That darn wench. Were you at your mother's house last night around 10:30 p.m.? Someone testified that she heard you guys having an argument. Are you doubting me right now? When your mother told you that she was going to donate all her money to the welfare center, it must have made you furious. Do you have proof? Do you have evidence that I killed her? Do you think I'm stupid? Listen to me. If you want me to come to the police station again, bring me a warrant, okay? And the son leaves. Detective Chae goes to tell the rest of the team that he thinks that it's the son, but Chae-Won refuses to believe him. Gosh, this is so annoying. I never knew that you were so slow at understanding things, Chae-Won. This is Chung Moon-ok's will, a will that's saying that she was going to donate all her money to the welfare center after she dies. Look at the date. It was written yesterday. It was written on the day she was murdered. But you don't think it's important? Detective Chae, listen to me for a second. Why Ko Min-suk? No, the culprit had a reason for removing her fingernails because something was there. That was the culprit's lipstick. It's easy to detect a person's DNA from their lipstick. But there was lipstick on her finger as well. Why did the culprit just cut off her finger, Chae-Won? Because the culprit didn't see it. The blood hadn't oxidized yet, so it wasn't visible. She could have gotten that lipstick mark from anyone. You can just ignore that. It's not important. Try to focus on this. Who do you think would get furious after reading this? It's so obvious. The culprit could have just stolen some stuff and made it look like a burglary case. But why go through all that effort and follow Min-suk? I am so sick and tired of that darn Min-suk. Chae-Won, stop being stubborn. It was An Kong-ju. We have to catch her. No, Detective Chae, we have to investigate the woman who knew the victim and find out whose lipstick that was. What is wrong with you, Chae-Won? This is the strongest motive for murder. And he starts waving the will around in Chae-Won's face, and she grabs it to put it aside, but something catches her attention instead. The fingerprint on this will. Is this? Chung Moon-ok probably couldn't find a stamp pad and used the killer's lipstick for her fingerprints. She probably wiped off the lipstick on her thumb, but it's hard to remove it from underneath your nail. Her killer was probably bothered by that and cut off her thumbnail. And then she set it up to look like it was Ko Min-suk's MO. With whom do you think Chung Moon-ok wrote the will with? And Detective Chae smacks himself in the head. Park So-young, the social worker. Since I was so focused on the people who knew the victim rather than the MO, she led me to find the will. She made me turn my attention completely to An Kong-ju. And their team lead, Buchol, tells them that they need to bring him evidence as well as a motive. What was the motive for the murder? On the other side of town, Hee-sung is back in a shop talking to his mother-in-law, so Chae-Won's mom. He'd left Eun-ha with her so that he can go rummage through Moojin's bag in peace. And he's looking through the bag and he finds a couple things that catch his attention. The first is the silver necklace, the one with the blue pendant. He picks it up and looks at it for a good minute. The second thing that caught his attention was something that was written in Moojin's notebook. Witness, Jon-Gi stream, Namsun-gil, 5 p.m. The next thing we know, Hee-sung is in the basement in front of Moojin with a bottle of water. Moojin looks at the water and immediately starts pleading. Hyunsu, give me some water, please. My throat is so parched, I might die. Please, water. Hee-sung instead shows him the page with the address written on it. Explain, why were you meeting Namsun-gil? Moojin tries to pass it off as nothing, but then Hee-sung unscrews the bottle cap and starts pouring the water onto the floor, and Moojin cracks. I remember now, he said that he had a tip, so I said that I'd meet him. A tip about what? Give me the water first. I gave you one, so you should give me one. That's only fair. Hee-sung holds the bottle of water to Moojin's mouth and allows him to take 2 gulps before the bottle gets pulled away, and Moojin speaks again. It's a tip about you. Why did he call you? I wrote an article. What article? Just, about you and your dad. When are you meeting him? Today, Hyunsu, wouldn't it be bad if I didn't show up to this meeting? While Hee-sung is investigating Moojin, Chae-Won approaches Soo-young, the social worker, in the restroom of the office building. Park Soo-young, I'm Detective Chae-Won from the Kangsu police station. Do you need something from me? We obtained a female DNA from Chung Won-ok's will. We believe that it belongs to the killer, and we're asking for DNA samples from all the women that she knew. The sample will be destroyed as soon as it's examined. Will you cooperate? Soo-young looks at Chae-Won for a bit and then turns around to look at herself in the mirror and says, I refuse. Refusing to cooperate may be held against you in a court of law. Do you have any proof that I killed that old woman? And Chae-Won admits that they don't, at least not yet. But no need to worry because Detective Chae is working on it. He's looking through the CCTV footage of the apartment that Soo-young lives in, and he notices that her clothes look a little bit funny. This is what she was wearing as she was leaving her place. She was wearing this brown coat with a plaid pattern going down the middle where the buttons of the coat usually are. And then they look at the CCTV footage of her coming back into her apartment, and she's wearing a completely plaid coat. And it's the same plaid pattern that we saw in the middle of her coat. So she didn't change her clothes, but rather flipped her clothes inside out so that you can cover up the blood stains, right? He also notices that she has this little pink plastic bag, and that bag probably has the murder weapon and the thumbnails. Hee-sung, what is he doing? He's right now on a bridge with a little baseball hat on his head to hide his face, and he's looking into the distance, but not too far because a couple yards in front of him sits Namsun-gil. Hee-sung pulls out Moojin's phone and calls Sun-gil, so he's basically going to pretend to be Moojin. Hello, Mr. Kim, where are you? Sun-gil starts looking around, but Hee-sung cuts his search short. I'm busy on a case and won't be able to make it. Can we do a brief interview over the phone? Yeah, sure, that's fine. What tip did you want to give me about Hyunsu? Sun-gil pauses for a second before pulling out the article that Moojin wrote on the serial killings. He printed it out for whatever reason. You said that Hyunsu disappeared from the town in the summer of 2002? Well, I lived with him from the fall of 2002 to the summer of 2005. We were both delivery men. I thought something must have happened in his past, but I never imagined that he would have murdered someone. I would have reported him if I knew. I had no idea that his father was a serial killer. He's Toman-suk's son. No wonder. No wonder. He was weird. He wasn't normal. I watched a movie with him once and he asked me at which scenes he should laugh at and which scenes he should be sad at. You knew Hyunsu for 3 years. Is that all? Okay, thank you for the tip. Have a good day. Wait, no, don't hang up. Hyunsu has been threatening me. And Hee-sung is like, what? He would know if he was threatening someone. He wouldn't have had to ask Moojin what this tip was about. It's driving me crazy. Please, please protect me. Back with Detective Chae, he's trying to figure out where Soo-young could have hid the knife. The CCTV footage doesn't show her exiting her apartment after she came home, but she must have known that she'd get caught on the CCTV, so she wouldn't have hid it in her house. She would have left it somewhere else in the apartment complex. And that's when Detective Chae remembers something that Soo-young had told him. She saw a shooting star yesterday, so that means she must have been up on the roof. With that figured out, Detective Chae heads up to the roof where he looks around, wondering where she could have hidden her murder weapon. And then he sees a little trap door a couple feet away. He opens the door and sure enough, in there is the pink plastic bag. Chae-Won in the meantime is appalled at Soo-young because she doesn't look even the slightest bit upset. Like, she genuinely believes that she did nothing wrong. And when Chae-Won gets a phone call from Detective Choi confirming that he has the weapons, Chae-Won doesn't waste her time. Park Soo-young, from this moment on, you're a suspect of murder. You are under arrest for the murder of Jung Moon-ok. Instead of apologizing or trying to negotiate or even run, Soo-young asks if she can fix her makeup first. I don't normally go around looking like this. I didn't wear makeup today because I wanted to pretend to be sad, but I read somewhere that your sentence varies based off your appearance. And Chae-Won can't believe her ears, but she gives her the go-ahead. And she can't help but ask, why did you do it? Soo-young is rubbing her lips together after applying this bright red lipstick and simply says, there were too many stairs. 2 days ago around 9 p.m., Soo-young went to the grandmother's house, and the grandmother lives on top of like this hill that requires Soo-young to climb stairs. If you've ever visited San Francisco, you know how some of the inclines are so steep that they have stairs on the sidewalks to make it easier to go up them? It's kind of like that. She had to climb stairs every time the grandma needed her, and she did it again that day. The grandma finished up her will and signed it using Soo-young's lipstick, so she coated her thumb in the lipstick and left the thumbprint on the will. And as she was doing this, she's asked Soo-young, who was peeling an apple, to finish up the notarization for her. And then the grandma makes the biggest mistake of her life. She said that she wants nothing more in life, that all she needs is for Soo-young to come spend some time with her every day, to keep her company like a granddaughter. But Soo-young's focus was not on the fact that the grandmother considered her a granddaughter. It was the fact that she had to climb those stairs every day. So when the grandmother asked Soo-young to scratch her back, Soo-young dug the apple knife into the grandmother's back. Major donors like her are like deities to the center. The thought of climbing those stairs every day for that old woman until she died made me livid. And the next morning, she put on a show for the police. Chae-Won looks disgusted, which is hurting Soo-young's feelings. How could you look at me like I'm some sort of insect? I'm hurt. How could you kill a person for something like that? You know, they say there's about 3% of people who are just like me. Who knows? There might be someone near you too. So let's jump to what that person in Chae-Won's life is doing. Hee-sung is still on the phone with Seung-gil, and Seung-gil is telling him about how a month ago he got a call from a payphone around 4 a.m. And Hee-sung asks, did that person say he was Toyeon-soo? And we get a flashback to that night, that 4 a.m. night. The phone call had woken up Seung-gil in the middle of the night, and the person said, are you happy? I've been waiting for your life to become the happiest ever. I'm going to do what I can now. And on the phone, Seung-gil is telling Hee-sung, who is pretending to be Moo-jin, that Hyun-soo is the only person who would ever do that to me. Why is that? Well, I was young and blinded by greed, so I wronged him. And we get another flashback. Seung-gil had drawn Hyun-soo into a forest by saying that he had lost his phone. It was raining heavily, but Hyun-soo, being a nice roommate, is helping him look for it, when all of a sudden, Seung-gil pulls out a knife and attempts to stab him. He actually manages to push the knife into Hyun-soo's shoulder, but of course your instinct to live is strong, so he knocks Seung-gil to the ground. Why are you doing this? I'm sorry, I want to live well too, meaning that he had planned to kill Hyun-soo and, steal all of his money so that he can get a better life for himself. In present day, that story is why Seung-gil is so sure that Hyun-soo is the one that's trying to take revenge on him. Hee-sung has heard enough. Suspects someone else. Hyun-soo is dead. What? Are you positive? Yes, so you should forget about him. That's such a relief. A relief? I mean, he was on the run for killing someone anyway. He shouldn't be alive. It's better for certain people to be dead. Don't you agree? Hee-sung smiles a crooked smile and says, right, it's better for certain people to be dead. And I think Soo-young might be one of those people that are just better off dead. While she had been telling Chae-Won her murder story, she had gotten out this little blade, something that people use to shave their eyebrows or their face, and she sliced Chae-Won with it. Thankfully, Chae-Won doesn't get a big cut, but she gets this little tiny cut underneath her eye, and Soo-young says, what a shame. I really hated your eyes. I give up. Arrest me. Chae-Won, despite her sweet looks, is not somebody that you want to mess with. She is a trained police officer after all. So she slaps Soo-young, and then she slaps her again and again and again. And when Soo-young ends up on the floor and she's had enough, she yells, the police can't do this. Chae-Won gets down to Soo-young's eye level. Who would believe someone like you killed a lady because you didn't want to climb stairs? So what? A suspect could be killed during a physical altercation with a police officer. Don't you agree? Does fooling and hurting someone weaker than you make you feel superior? I confess to the crime. I'll definitely report this. I'll watch and remember just how pathetic you were in your last moments. Chae-Won then takes the blade from Soo-young and puts it to her neck and says, the carotid artery, 12 seconds. The subclavian artery, 3.5 seconds. I'll make sure it ends within a minute, so take your pick. Which one will it be? And I guess at the end of the day, Soo-young wants to live because she starts pleading for her life. Chae-Won smiles before removing the blade. I'm only joking. How could a police officer take a life? I notified you of your arrest earlier, and since you're a human being before the law, you have the right to an attorney and the right to explain yourself. You may appeal to the terms of this arrest. Now back with Hee-sung. He is currently inside his mother's pharmacy looking for some sleeping pills. He gets those, has an unpleasant conversation with his mother, and then goes to pick up Chae-Won because it is still raining heavily. And he's concerned when he spots the bandage underneath Chae-Won's eyes. But Chae-Won brushes it off and the two of them start heading home talking about what they want to eat for dinner. Later that night, a masked man with a black raincoat enters a pet shop. The owner of the shop is watching the news, which is talking about the arrest of Soo-young and how she tried to mimic Min-seok. The masked man heads straight to the dog collar section, picks up a hound dog collar, and for those of you who were paying attention earlier, you know that this is the noose that Min-seok used for his victims. And this man's victim is none other than Seung-gil. Seung-gil was sitting in his restaurant reading over the article that Moo-jin had written when he decides to call the author. And of course, Moo-jin's phone is turned off, so he leaves a message. Mr. Kim, this is Nam Seung-gil. There's something I didn't tell you earlier, something that it will intrigue you. I recently heard that Hyun-soo assisted his father in killings. Shocking, right? Anyway, it's why I've been so on edge. Call me anytime you need to follow up. But before he can end the voicemail, the bell that he had attached to his restaurant door rings, and in walks a masked man in a black coat. And Seung-gil's last words are, Mr. Kim, it's Hyun-soo. Hyun-soo is here. What did I tell you? I said he'd come for revenge. And after committing his little crime, the killer leaves to this really creepy warehouse. It has a bunch of mannequins with some missing parts, like one of them has a missing head and the other one has like a missing left arm. And in that warehouse is a room filled wall to wall with articles about Min-seok. He then takes the article that Moo-jin wrote, puts it up on the wall, and stabs a knife into the article, basically pinning it to the wall. That same night, Chae-Won wakes up still in her work clothes, confused about when she even fell asleep. But it's 3:30 a.m. and she sees that Hee-sung is not next to her. She gets up to take a look around the house for him, but as she's looking into the living room, the lock on their house door turns, and in comes a man wearing the same black coat that we saw earlier killing Seung-gil. And since it's raining heavily, he's dripping water, and I don't know if it's because of the lighting or because the coat is black, but the water droplets look a lot like blood. Now we get another flashback to young adult Hee-sung and Chae-Won in the summer of 2007. Hee-sung has this little metal workshop that he spends most of his time in, and on this particular day, he's making a pair of rings. He had just dropped them into the water to cool off when Chae-Won enters his shop. I'm back again. It seemed like you really liked this beer, so I bought you some without telling my mom. And she's rewarded with silence. Hee-sung doesn't even acknowledge her, so she tries again. Where did you learn to do stuff like this? You told me that you didn't go to college. Is there some sort of academy that teaches you about this stuff? When he doesn't respond again, Chae-Won pulls out her phone and snaps a little photo of his side profile. She's looking at it happily until he starts coming towards her. What are you doing? Can I upload this on my social media account? I'll upload it as the handsome guy in my neighborhood. I asked what you're doing. Delete it right now. Okay, I'll delete it. I'll delete it right now. I had no idea you didn't like taking photos. She deletes the photo, but Hee-sung doesn't back away. Instead, he asks her, who are you? Why are you doing a background check on me? You keep asking questions about me. You asked about my blood type, my zodiac sign, my birthday, and my favorite and least favorite foods. I heard from the guy next door that you even asked for my phone number. Why? Did someone ask you to gather information about me? And Chae-Won is confused. Why does he think that she's trying to do a background check on him? Of course no one asked her to dig stuff up. It's just that she goes and takes a sip from the beer that she bought for him and says, I like you, Hee-sung. For a good 30 seconds, he doesn't respond to her. Instead, he's staring off into space, and Chae-Won can't tell what he's thinking. So she asks, will you at least tell me if you like me back or not, or if you need some time to think about it? My name is Chae-Won. And she's excitedly waiting for a response when he says, don't ever come back again. Get out of here right now. What, do you need me to drag you out? Back in present day, in the dead of night, Chae-Won is staring at her front door as it slowly opens. And honestly, she's a little bit on edge when she saw this man wearing a black coat enter her house. But when he lets down his hood and it's just her husband, Chae-Won instinctively relaxed. Where were you at this hour? It's raining outside. I was working in my studio because I couldn't fall asleep. And then I noticed that we didn't have any beer. He shows her the black plastic bag filled with beer before placing it down on their living room coffee table. Chae-Won takes one of the beers and smiles when she sees the brand. Remember when I first confessed my feelings for you? You were so angry at me. Do you want me to drag you out? Why are you bringing that up? Why did you hate me so much? I didn't hate you, I just felt awkward. Nobody has ever said that to me before. My gosh, you are so naive. This is why I can't talk to you about my past. Your past? Why? What happened? You'll be shocked. I'm a woman with quite a complicated past. Hee-sung lets out a hearty laugh before saying, you had me fooled. And that's how they spend the rest of the night, just laughing and goofing around. But what exactly was Hee-sung doing before he came back home? Well, he most definitely wasn't just hanging out in his studio. He had gone back down into the basement to feed Moojin kimbap. Does it taste okay? I'm asking if it tastes okay. Do you really think I care about how good it tastes? I'm eating to stay alive. Eat up. I bet it tastes okay. I went all the way to your neighborhood to buy this. In other words, this kimbap is going to be the last meal found in your stomach when they do an autopsy. Hearing this, Moojin spits out the food that's in his mouth, and when he sees Hee-sung crushing up some pills underneath the water glass, he frantically starts questioning Hee-sung. Hyunsu, hey, what is this drug? Are you really gonna kill me? Is it so easy for you to murder someone? Of course it's not easy. How much do you weigh? 70 kilograms? 75 kilograms? Once you take this sleeping pill, you'll be unconscious. Do you think it'll be easy for me to move you all the way to my car? At this point, Moojin knows he's not going to be able to get through to Hee-sung, so he starts to shout for help. Of course, no one comes to help him because no one can hear him. And when Hee-sung is done crushing up the pills and mixing them into like a glass of water, he holds Moojin's cheeks and then he tries to get him to drink the water. But Moojin struggles, causing the glass to fly across the room and shatter into pieces. Moojin pleads with Hee-sung one more time. Hyunsu, will you please let me live? I'll do everything you ask, so please let me live. Let me live. If I ask you something, will you give me an honest answer? Yes, what is it? You uploaded something to the web in 2011. I saw it because you were logged in. He holds up Moojin's phone and it's open to this web page. Read it. Read it out loud. I'm a high school girl who wants to become a screenwriter. The main character once helped someone commit a crime without knowing that it was against the law. The main character is currently trying to become a reporter. What kind of disadvantages would he experience if people find out about his past? What if someone even died because of him? Is this your story? Moojin says no, but he says it a bit too fast, and Hee-sung starts scrolling to see more posts, and he sees one that piques his interest. There's a video of that day. He did what he was told. He really had no idea. Did you really not know? Moojin once again shakes his head. He didn't know. He swears with all of his heart that he didn't know it was a crime. But what Hee-sung gets from the denial was that he did see the crime, and there is a video. Moojin once again starts pleading. Hyunsu, I won't tell a soul. I'll forget that I met you, alright? I won't come near you. I swear. I'll swear on my mom's life. So please just let me go. I don't want your oath. I want collateral. I don't trust people. Do you understand? We'll find out what came of that understanding later, but now it's daytime and Seung-gil's body has been found. Chae-Won and Ho-jun arrive at the scene and Ho-jun has to look away from the body for a bit because it's just that bad. On the other hand, the first thing that Chae-Won notices is all the blood. There is just so much blood. And then she notices the cut on the ankle. The cut looks eerily similar to the ones that Tom In-suk's victims had, and then the hound dog collar that was tied around Seung-gil's neck. Chae-Won then asks about the thumbnails, and Detective Choi confirms that he's missing both. And then Detective Choi points upward, and there we see a CCTV, a completely functioning CCTV. The entire Kansu Police State Department gathers in a room to watch as the black-coated killer takes the leg of a crawling Seung-gil and cuts it with a knife before putting the dog collar back around the neck. And while Chae-Won is watching, she can't help but think back to last night. Hee-sung had the exact same coat. He was also out last night. And she doesn't think more about it because the police chief, Sang-pil, is confused. Why Do-min-suk again? Is it a camouflage for Park Soo-young? Chae-Won's team lead Woo Chul speaks up saying that it's different from Soo-young's case because the brand and the pattern of the collar that Min-suk had tied around the victims' necks in 2002 was not disclosed to the press or the public, but the killer used the exact same brand that Min-suk used. Chae-Won adds that Park Soo-young killed in a moment of passion. In contrast, the footage that they all watched show clear signs that this was premeditated. He's someone who wanted to show how similar he can be to Min-suk, making him more dangerous. Detective Choi adds that Min-suk killed 7 people, so who knows how many more people this killer can kill. The chief Sang-pil toys with the idea of giving this case away since a serial killer isn't something that this station is really equipped to deal with. But Woo Chul decides that they can catch him because according to him, the killer was too reckless about choosing his victim. This victim had a family, they had a job, and he was a healthy middle-aged man with a daily routine. From a killer's perspective, this would have been a very risky kill if you don't want to get caught. They disperse, and Woo Chul's first question to the team is about the victim's family. We learn that Seung-gil grew up in an orphanage, so he has no direct relatives, but he does have a wife. She's now 6 months pregnant, but she fainted from the shock of the news of her husband's death and is now recovering in the hospital. Woo Chul's next question is who was the person Seung-gil last spoke to? And the answer to that is reporter Kim Moo-jin. So the hunt for Moo-jin begins. They look into Moo-jin's phone records, but those also show that the last person that Moo-jin spoke to was Seung-gil. Woo Chul tells Chae-Won and Ho-jun to look into Moo-jin as fast as possible and tells Detective Choi to look into the killer and where he fled. While his wife is busy fighting crime, Hee-sung is busy committing crimes. He's made his way inside of Moo-jin's apartment to find the video, and Moo-jin has told him that it was on his laptop on this desk that he had inside of his living room, and the password is MJ0905. And in a program called the S folder, there's a folder called SHS, and in that is everything that will end Moo-jin's life if it were to get out. Hee-sung opens the folder and it's just a bunch of videos of Moo-jin's high school crush, To Hee-soo, and Hee-sung is mad. He was just fooled. Moo-jin, who had made a fool of Hee-sung, is in the basement swinging his chair side to side, and he wants to fall down onto his side because his eyes had caught sight of a glass shard from the water glass that had broken the last night. If he can get there and untie his hands before Hee-sung comes back, then he could free himself. Meanwhile, at Moo-jin's workplace, Chae-Won is questioning Moo-jin's boss. Moo-jin didn't show up to work for 2 days. Why didn't you report him missing? Everyone comes in on Mondays for the editing meeting, but they don't have to come in before Thursday for the deadline. Reporters don't usually turn off their phones though. Moo-jin does. He'd turn off his phone and take trips somewhere. Another employee comes to serve them tea, but before leaving she says, actually, I wonder if reporter Kim is locked up somewhere? And Chae-Won is concerned. Locked up? And the employee clarifies, in his bathroom. He said that the bathroom door in his apartment broke and he was trapped inside there before. And then he said that he would have died if his mother didn't show up. So, like the good little detectives they are, they head to Moo-jin's apartment. At first, they knock while calling for him, just in case he's home. But when they notice that he'd had breakfast delivered to his apartment 2 days in a row, but none of the items were touched, they break the door to enter. And while they were busy calling for Moo-jin, Hee-sung has gotten up from his laptop viewing experience and saw Chae-Won through the little peephole in Moo-jin's apartment door. And now he's frantically turning off the apartment and trying to hide because he really can't have his wife seeing him here. Chae-Won enters the apartment only to find it completely empty. They search every nook and cranny, but no one. She tries calling Moo-jin again, but again his phone is turned off. And they're about to leave when Chae-Won notices something strange. Underneath the wheels of the desk chair are a pair of brand new shirts. They still have their tags on. No one leaves brand new clothes squashed under a leg chair. She touches his laptop and it's still warm. That means that someone was just in here or they're still here. Chae-Won and Ho-jun search the house one more time, and this time Chae-Won looks at the patio. And this is not like your typical open patio or balconies like we have in America. Instead, it's more like a sunroom, and there are these like white curtains that are closed so that the sunlight doesn't come in. And again, something is weird. A pot has fallen onto its side. She bends down to touch the dirt of the fallen pot, and as she goes down, we see Hee-sung's silhouette on the opposite side of the curtains. He's sandwiched between the glass wall of the patio windows and the concrete side of the building. If Chae-Won is just to turn her head a little bit to the right, she can see his shadow. But before she gets a chance to do that, the sun goes to hide behind some clouds, basically destroying his shadow. Chae-Won sticks her head out the window in front of her, but again, there's no one there. She's about to leave when Hee-sung loses his grip for just a quick second, and the fear makes him let out a little peep. It's nothing that someone can tell was made by a human, but it's something that would catch anyone's attention. So of course it catches Chae-Won's attention. She approaches the right side of the window and starts moving the curtain to the side when Ho-jin interrupts her. She has a phone call. And oddly enough, it's Hee-sung. He'd called her to distract her from the window. Honey, do you know a reporter by the name Kim Woo-jin? Reporter Kim Woo-jin? Yeah, he's insisting that he knows you. Do you know him? Reporter Kim is at your workshop. Why would he? Honey, can you put him on the phone? Oh, well, he went to go get his phone, which is charging in his car. Should I tell him to call you back? No, just tell him to meet me at the station. It's urgent, so tell him to go right away. Hee-sung says okay and is about to hang up when he sees a little kid on the road below, just looking up at him. And as soon as they make eye contact, the little boy starts screaming, "A thief! It's a thief! A thief!" Chae-Won, who is about to leave, stops because she hears the boy screaming, and for a second she's confused if she hears it on her phone or if it's coming from outside. And I don't know about you guys, but I sometimes have a hard time distinguishing when sounds are coming from somewhere around me and also on my phone, which is coming from where. So she does exactly what I would have done and removes the phone from her ear, and it's coming from outside. She starts heading outside when Hee-sung gets her attention through her phone. Honey, I think I have a fever. This stops her walk towards the patio. What? Okay, get some rest, okay? Should I ask my mom to make you some porridge? And by this point, the little boy outside stops screaming because his mom came, and he points to where he saw the thief, and Hee-sung is no longer there. The mom just thinks that it's a kid being a kid and takes him away. And the phone conversation between Chae-Won and Hee-sung continues without a hitch. Hee-sung says, "It's fine, I'll just take some medicine and sleep it off. Anyway, don't be alarmed if I don't answer my phone later." And before anyone else can say anything or do anything, Ho-jin tells Chae-Won that they should get going. While these two have cracked the case on Moojin, Detective Choi is looking through the CCTV footages of the nearby stores, and he's found a jackpot: the license plate number of the taxi that took the killer to and from the crime scene. He calls the taxi driver up and asks him to meet at the police station. Ho-jin and Chae-Won are in their car heading back to the station when Chae-Won just can't take it anymore. She's worried sick about her husband. Ho-jin drops her off on the side of the road so that she can head home while Ho-jin heads to the police station. And when he gets there, he's confused. He asks Detective Choi where Moojin is, and Detective Choi is confused. What are you talking about? You guys went to find him. So where is he? Chae-Won has made her way back to home, and she bumps into a neighbor lady who curiously says that the shop seems to be closed often these days. And Chae-Won thought that was strange and goes to head inside when the door opens for her and Hee-sung is there looking like he'd just gotten beat up. Honey, what happened to your face? Oh, don't worry about it, nothing happened. She's touching his face and is about to ask again when Moojin pops out with bruises on his face as well. Chae-Won, we agreed to meet at the police station, right? What are you doing here? Did you come to pick me up? So what exactly happened between these two to be all buddy-buddy all of a sudden? Well, after Chae-Won left, Hee-sung went back into Moojin's apartment and sat on the couch thinking it has to be here somewhere. It's obviously not on the laptop, and he's solemnly staring at the TV in front of him. And then he sees a camcorder attached to the TV. He goes to see if there's any tapes in there, and when he looks, he finds exactly what he needs. It's a video of middle school Hyunsu, Haesoo, and Moojin, and it looks like they're in some building, and Haesoo is busy telling Moojin to leave. Moojin, hurry up and leave. We have no time. My dad is going to kill me if he finds out. But Moojin is more interested in flirting with her. Hey, you look nice on camera, Haesoo. Hee-sung, who's also there, is annoyed. Do you have a death wish? I told you not to talk to her like she's your friend. Hey, future brother-in-law, don't be so cold. And Haesoo is over the both of them. Be quiet, you two. Let's get this over with. Gosh, I don't like him, Haesoo. There's no such thing as ghosts, Hyunsu. I seriously heard something. Tell Moojin to go down by himself. You're scared, aren't you? Hey, you guys wait here. I'll go interview the ghost. Reporter Kim Woo-jin will be right back. Woo-jin, with his camcorder still recording, goes down the stairs, and he's not as brave as he made himself out to be. The scene cuts off after he says, "What is this? This place is giving me the creeps." So we don't actually know what the tape contains. After watching this, Hee-sung heads back home to pick a bone with Woo-jin, but the moment the basement door opens and he heads down the stairs, he gets attacked. Remember that Woo-jin managed to use that glass shard to untie his hands, and after a little tussle, Hee-sung manages to get Woo-jin into a chokehold, and Woo-jin is about to pass out when Hee-sung lets him go. Woo-jin, who's now gasping for air, manages to get out. "Hey, do you think you'll be able to get away with this? How dare you try to backstab me? Just kill me! Here, go ahead, kill me. I'm a reporter. My death will be a bigger issue than the death of a village foreman. I can't kill you. The police are looking for you." "The cops? Why are they looking for me?" "I don't know. You just need to hurry up and go to the police station. Tidy up your hair and wipe that blood off your wrist." Are you telling me that the tables have turned? Why would I listen to you? It seems like you forgot that you are a guy who tried to kill me. You psychopath. First, I want you to give me a sincere and heartfelt apology. Hee-sung refuses, saying that they have no time, but Woo-jin is on his little high horse and he's not getting down anytime soon. "I have tons of stuff I can tell the cops once I arrive at the police station." And now he's forced Hee-sung to use his cards. "That camcorder, it was fun." You watched it? "I'll keep the tape. If the video goes public, do you think you'll be able to stay a reporter?" "No, wait, you probably won't even be able to live in Korea. If you had made a different choice, the serial murders would have stopped. How many more did you kill?" "I guess you have watched that video pretty often. Why? Do you think back on what happened and get all excited about it? Do you think I'm a monster like you? So, will you do as I say, or do you want to ruin each other's lives? What do you want me to do?" "First, I want you to give me a sincere and heartfelt apology." And that's how Woo-jin finds himself watching as Chae-Won gives first aid to his kidnapper. Chae-Won has this accusatory look in her face every time she looks at Woo-jin, and once she's done with the first aid on Hee-sung, she gets up and handcuffs Woo-jin. Reporter Kim Woo-jin, you're under arrest without a warrant for assault based on Article 206, Clause 1. Woo-jin throws a desperate look at Hee-sung, who intervenes. "We already settled everything. I was the one who started it. It was my fault. I did something to make him angry." "Stop talking nonsense. You're too nice to everyone." "He kept asking for free stuff to in return for writing an article, so I got angry. I had no idea you guys were acquainted, and I asked him to leave and pushed him. It really was my fault." Chae-Won shoots Woo-jin a hateful look, and words come out of Woo-jin's mouth before he can help himself. "You just thought about me as a scumbag, didn't you? I have so much to say." And then he catches Hee-sung's eyes and continues, "But I have nothing to say." Hee-sung apologizes to Woo-jin. "I apologize again. I'm sorry, Mr. Kim. I was way out of line. Had I known that you knew my wife, I would have given you something." Chae-Won scolds Woo-jin to apologize as well, and after that, Woo-jin finds out why Chae-Won wanted to see him. She tells him about how Seung-gil was murdered earlier in the morning, and Woo-jin is shocked. He looks at Hee-sung, but Hee-sung looks blank, like he's not surprised, not panicked, he just looks blank. Chae-Won takes Woo-jin to the police station where they play Seung-gil's last voicemail. They also show the CCTV footage, and to him, it's pretty clear that the killer is Hee-sung, because when Hee-sung had come in to feed him kimbap last night, he had the exact same black jacket. When all the evidence the police have is laid out in front of Woo-jin, they all have one question for him. Who is Hyun-soo? Have you heard of Do Min-seok, the serial killer? Do Hyun-soo is the serial killer's son. I wrote about the two of them in an article, and I used to live in the same town as them. And Ho-jun asks, didn't Hyun-soo kill the village foreman 3 months after his father died and fled? Hyun-soo's backpack. They found the murder weapon that was used to kill the village foreman. I believe he's still wanted for that crime. And Detective Chae is shaken. That was 18 years ago. They still didn't catch him? What is this, a long-term unsolved case? What's the connection with him and Seung-gil? He read my article and called me saying that he had a tip. For about 3 years, from the fall of 2002, he made deliveries for a Chinese restaurant with Hyun-soo. That's all I know, really. And Chae-Won questions, what did he mean? Hyun-soo murdered people with his father. That's just a malicious rumor, a terrible rumor that circulated around town after Min-seok killed himself. Why did such a rumor circulate to begin with? Well, Hyunsu was a bit weird. We didn't know the proper term back then, so we said that he was possessed. What term? Antisocial personality disorder? If anyone upset him in even the slightest way, he made sure to get revenge. Back then, I assumed he'd get better when he got older, but he's the same. Oh, anyway, goodness. And Chae-Won latches on to some of his words. Back then, you sound like you know him now. No, I mean, I didn't know that I'd meet him again because of a murder case like this. That is, I didn't know I'd hear about him again. And that is when they get word that Sung-gil's wife has woken up. Chae-Won and Ho-jun head over to the hospital and Chae-Won begins questioning her. I know it's hard, but let me ask you something. Is there anyone you know who would have had a grudge against your husband? And the wife had only one name in mind, Hyunsu. Her husband had gotten a threatening call every morning and her husband always called one name, Hyunsu. Detective Choi has let Moojin go and is now questioning the taxi driver who had taken the killer to and from the crime scene. Do you remember the passenger wearing a raincoat from this morning? Yeah, he said that he'd be right back and asked me to wait there for 30 minutes. So I did, and he came back after about 30 minutes and got back in. Where did he get off? It was in a residential area in Osongdong? Osongdong. If it was Osongdong, then New Sun Villas? How did you know that? There are no surveillance cameras over there. Wow, you're amazing. No need for applause. Mr. Park Kyung-chun, you live alone, right? This tumbler, it's a free gift if you buy a single serving of packaged soup. I saw it flash by on a TV, but I remember it. Do you remember anything else, like the way he spoke, a tattoo, or his smell, or maybe even a job? And the taxi driver remembers that he had asked the man what he does for a living, and he replied that he does the same thing as his father. Moojin, who is finally free, goes back to his apartment, and the first thing he checks is his camcorder, and indeed, the tape is gone. Realizing that he literally can't do anything, he collapses onto his couch and he starts talking to himself. I'm sure Hyunsu met Sung-gil yesterday, but no way, he isn't that bad. I should call the cops. Forget it, he'll just lock me up again. He went to my place. What if I take the fall? He picks up his phone to call Chae-Won, but before he can press the call button, he gets a call from his boss, Miss Kang. She calls him over to feed him some luwak coffee, which, for those of you who don't know, it is apparently coffee that is made from cat's poop. Now, I'm not a coffee drinker, but this is the opinion of Reddit. And luwak apparently tastes pretty good, so if you are a coffee enthusiast, do with that information as you will. Anyway, Moojin is getting showered with attention from his boss because she is sure that he has a big scoop for her. She shows him a clip from the news about how at 3:30 a.m. an armed assailant entered the Chinese restaurant. And then she says the Hosindong Chinese restaurant murder case and the Yeonju City serial murder case from 18 years ago. I heard that you knew there was a link between the two of them. There's something there, right? Is it good? Do you want a team? Do you want to act alone for now? This case is just associated by chance, Miss Kang. I don't plan to. Hold on. At 3 a.m.? He replays the clip and sure enough, the time of death is 3:30 a.m. And he thinks back to the grandfather clock in the basement. At 3 a.m., Hee-sung was with him, feeding him kimbap and asking him for collateral. So it couldn't have been Hee-sung who killed Sung-gil. He didn't have enough time to commit the murder. Miss Kang, I have a feeling I'll bring you an exclusive. In another city, Chae-Won and Ho-jun are at Hyunsu's old workplace, a Chinese restaurant. The walls are decorated with posters of food, and as Chae-Won is looking at them, she notices that the soup looks very similar to the soup that her husband makes. But the conversation that they have with the shop owner drags her attention away. The shop owner tells him that Sung-gil and Hyunsu worked for him for about 3 years, and he doesn't have Hyunsu's bank details because Hyunsu didn't have an ID, so he had paid him under the table. But he swears that he paid them both the correct amounts because Sung-gil managed to bring him $10,000. He wanted to learn more about the recipes from the restaurant owner, so he took the money in return for sharing some of the recipes and even helped Sung-gil open up a restaurant. Hyunsu, however, left the job without so much as a goodbye. But the owner, again, remembers that Hyunsu was a weird person. There was this one time when the shop owner fell on the ground and Hyunsoo laughed at him. When he asked Hyunsoo why he laughed, he said it was because I made a funny sound while falling. If you were paying attention, you hopefully remember that Seung-gil attacked Hyunsoo because he wanted his money. Well, how did Hyunsoo escape? Well, he managed to overpower Seung-gil and take the knife from him, and he's about to stab Seung-gil regardless of Seung-gil's pleas about how he must have lost his mind for a second. But when he lifts the knife up, he hears a voice. Kill him. Hyunsoo, kill him. And it's a rendition of his father, Min-suk. And the man looks pretty darn creepy. You can't see the whites of his eyes, and he's holding like his hound dog leash, and he has zero emotions on his face while he's telling Hyunsoo to kill Seung-gil. And that's enough to get Hyunsoo to run far away. He stabs the knife into the ground next to Seung-gil and begins running away from his biggest nightmare. He's bleeding heavily from his shoulder, and he's so disoriented that he doesn't even realize he's stopped in the middle of the road. And that's when a car hits him. In present day, Hee-sung is changing his shirt and he stops to look at the scar that he has on his left shoulder. He gets snapped out of his reminiscing when Eun-ha comes over asking if he's mad because she spilled some juice on him. But of course, he's not, and that's when his phone rings and Woojin's name pops up on his phone. He asks Eun-ha to go watch TV in the living room, and he picks up the phone and Woojin immediately starts telling him about how valuable he is to Hee-sung at this moment. I am now valuable to you, you know, being your alibi and all. What are you barking about? I knew you'd never commit such a messy killing. I talk from experience. I know how you operate. The nonsense you're spewing proves that you haven't learned your lesson. Let's meet up, then I'll talk. Didn't I tell you to get out of my life? Nam Seung-gil, the man you met yesterday, died. Don't you feel anything? Of course I do. The thorn in my back got killed. I'd love nothing more than to break out the champagne. Get on my nerves again and I'll seek you out myself. Got it? And Hee-sung hangs up, but literally seconds later, his doorbell rings. He opens the door and Woojin is entering the living room, yelling, "This is a murder case! My daughter is here, watch your mouth." But Eun-ha's curiosity has already been piqued, so she approaches the two of them, asking Woojin who he is. "Oh, I'm a friend of your dad's." And then Woojin proceeds to show Hee-sung the news clip about the murder, where they say the main suspect is someone that the police are calling Mr. To, a colleague that Seung-gil used to work with at a Chinese restaurant. Before dying, Seung-gil pointed to To-yeon-soo as his attacker. Eun-ha, who is in listening proximity, asks, "What's To-yeon-soo?" And with this, Hee-sung pushes Woojin out of the house. On the balcony, Hee-sung demands to know what the fork is going on, and instead of answering the question right away, Woojin asks, "Who killed the village foreman 18 years ago? I told you that that was me. Why do you ask again? What about Nam Seung-gil? That wasn't me. Of course, you're a killer, but not a liar. You're an honest bastard." Hee-sung's blood pressure is rising, so he grabs Woojin by the neck and pins him to the wall. "What game are you playing?" Woojin begs him to let him go because he can't say anything otherwise, and when Woojin starts overreacting about how hard it is for him to breathe after being in like a chokehold for 10 seconds, Hee-sung threatens to lock him up in the basement again, and Woojin spills in the next second. Seung-gil was apparently being threatened by Hyunsoo. Was it you? Did you threaten him? Why would I do that? I never even thought about him until I met you. The culprit knows Hyunsoo well enough to fool Seung-gil, but I'm sure that you know the culprit as well. Who could it be? It must be someone who strongly resents you. Think about it. I'm sure that he's somewhere in your memory. Woojin pulls out his phone to show Hee-sung the trending search list. Look, Yeonju City serial murder case is the most searched word online right now. The second is To Min-suk's son, and the third one is Chinese restaurant murder case. Look, it's all about this. Hee-sung, we're about to find out the truth behind this case before anyone else. This is huge. Is it really? For who? Well, it's huge for the both of us. Let's share information. You can clear your name and I'll get to write an exclusive. It'll be great for the both of us. We'll both benefit from it. A man in his 40s who has a pregnant wife got murdered just like the victims from 18 years ago. We need to solve this case. If the cops set you as their target, they will eventually find you. And now Hee-sung needs to know who is behind this. The scene changes to a warehouse that the killer is in. He takes a knife and pins a news article about the Chinese restaurant murder case to one of his walls. And then he turns to look at the wall to his left. And the entire wall is filled with multiple copies of the same exact poster, a missing persons poster with the photo of a woman on it. But while he's looking at this, he starts coughing violently, and eventually he starts coughing out some blood. He collapses onto the ground, pulls out a pill bottle, and starts dumping a bunch of pills into his mouth. But on the ground is his phone, and with the phone is a little phone accessory attached to it. The accessory is a wooden rectangle with a fish with black scales. It's like a golden fish with black scales on it. While the real culprit is in some abandoned warehouse, Chae-Won is debriefing the team about Hyun-soo. She's got this little whiteboard with his timeline on it. In 2005, Hyun-soo disappeared, and Seung-gil suddenly showed up with $10,000. And Seung-gil feared that Hyun-soo until the moment he died. I feel like the two had a falling apart due to money problems, and Detective Choi stops Ji-won. What about that photo of Hyun-soo? It's his middle school graduation photo. In 2002, when Hyun-soo was 18, he killed a village foreman and ran away. And before he did that, he set his house on fire. I think he tried to get rid of everything related to him. He was also very unsociable, so he had no friends, and they couldn't find anything even when the village foreman was murdered. So we'll have to ask the taxi driver to draw up a composite sketch because he was the last person to see him. Detective Choi, meanwhile, is appalled at how this guy seems to be a ghost. He doesn't have an ID, and therefore there are no credit cards, cell phones, or bank transfers that are made under his name. How in the world is he getting by? What about his family? Now let's take a look at what Hee-sung's mom is doing. She's having a pretty normal day until she hears the news playing on the TV. She immediately calls Hee-sung over and gives him a nice slap on the face. Why am I hearing things about you on the news? What kind of trouble have you caused? Hee-sung says that he didn't do it, that he's looking into it, but she doesn't believe him. You should be living your life like you don't exist. How can you be involved in a murder case? Have you lost your mind? If I knew that you would make mistakes like this, I never would have turned you into Baek Hee-sung. And what does that mean, that she would have never turned him into Hee-sung? Well, to find out, let's take a look at the grandpa for a second. He had just gotten home when his mute housekeeper comes up to him and writes something down on this little notepad that she has with her. The grandpa says that he'll take care of it, and then he heads to this suit closet. He parts the suits and opens another door that's behind all of these clothes. And behind that door is a whole room. It's not just any room though, it's a makeshift hospital room. It's equipped with a heart monitor, a ventilator, and oxygen tanks. And in the middle of it all is a man who is around the same age as Hee-sung and Moo-jin. A man with an oxygen mask on his face. He's not conscious at the moment, but Hee-sung's father looks at him and says, "Hee-sung." And that is where I'm going to end it for this episode. Crazy, right? Basically, Hyun-soo has been living as somebody else for the past 18 years, and the man that he's been living as isn't even dead. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments, and I will see you for the next one. Bye!